So exactly as I said on Times Radio on Saturday, and as the government press release indicated, I think late on Friday, the key issue here is, first of all, to express solidarity with the people who've lost their lives, the families of those who've lost their lives. The numbers now look like we're closer to 150 people losing their lives. It was clear to anybody who understood how Schengen operates that there was never going to be any assault on the Schengen area because Ceuta and Melilla have different arrangements for Schengen. When you're in Ceuta, you're not in Schengen. So those people could not move from Ceuta into the rest of the Schengen area. In fact, the reality is that what we saw last week was the biggest mass immigration and then the biggest mass emigration that we've seen in modern times, because of now the numbers I think we're being told was something like 70,000 people. Of the 72,000 people who it appears came into Ceuta, 70,000 have gone back, and you're left with about 2,000 who are unaccompanied adults who have to be dealt with in a slightly different way. So that entirely vindicates the position that we took, and we understand, therefore, that we were right in the approach that we were taking in respect of the new arrangements that we have with Spain in respect of Schengen.
What approach is this exactly?
Well, that there was going to be no question of Gibraltar somehow calling into question the operation of the new arrangements at the frontier and putting back up our frontier with Spain. That is not something that, for purposes of public security, public policy, was anywhere on the cards, and certainly not on the grounds of public health.
You've called for an investigation. What are you hoping this would achieve, both in shedding light on this crisis and in preventing further crises like these in future?
I don't think I'm saying anything that is not being said already in the EU and outside of the EU about what happened last week. You don't see 72,000 people move from one country to another without legal permission to do so, without there being something moving them. There is talk of social media in Morocco having prompted people to move. The Spanish government has been very clear that it is satisfied, that it is working in cooperation with the Moroccan government. But look, from my point of view, if you see 150 people die, you've got to get to the bottom of what happened there. Let me just postulate this for you in one way. What if it had been 150 Gibraltarians who had died? Or 150 Britons who had died? Or 150 Italians or Spaniards who had died? Wouldn't we immediately be calling for an investigation into what happened? Are we valuing life in a different way based on the nationality of the people who have died? A lot of the people who have died are children. Of course, everybody should want to have a clear understanding of what has happened there.